keeping you up to speed on all your Colorado teams. It's time for Coffee Break.
A happy Friday to you all. Welcome into Coffee Break. Appreciate you joining me each and every afternoon. Love interacting with you guys. And we get a little bit of a stress-free Friday heading into a weekend here because we don't have a Broncos game to think about, to worry about. We get to sit back and just kind of watch everything else happen. I don't know about you guys, but personally for me, I feel like I can enjoy things a little bit more because I'm not anxious about the team that I care about. And with me today to discuss the ending of our bye week here is he actually goes by a few names: the Scrappy One, the Scrapster, William H.W. Petersen.
Oh, yeah.
Will, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. That's a throwback, Richie.
Yeah, I know. See, I've been around.
Yeah, no, you have. I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm with you that it's another weekend of Red Zone. We had Red Zone last weekend.
Mhm.
We have it this weekend. And then we have it in 2 weekends, 3 out of 4 weeks. Red Zone, no Broncos on Sunday. Not that we're avoiding the Broncos like we have been in past years, but just I don't think anyone can complain about, hey, we just get to watch the rest of the league play for 7 hours.
Well, we got to watch 2 teams in the league play last night in what was an entertaining matchup, the Packers and the Lions. The Lions, who I think are going to be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl, and the Packers, who are kind of a surprisingly scrappy team. And I've had to raise my hand as someone who was very down on Jordan Love and thought that was going to be a train wreck and a disaster. And I've been proven wrong by a lot of accounts there. And we got to see a familiar face here in Broncos country have himself a bit of a night in Tim Patrick. What did you think when you were watching old Timmy Pats drop some dimes in the end zone?
Yeah, I mean, Timmy Pats 2 touchdowns last night. And, it's one of those things. I just sent out a simple tweet, Richie, that hey, the Broncos made a lot of good decisions this offseason. But cutting Tim Patrick for Lil Jordan Humphrey was not one of them. And oh boy, did that set social media ablaze. Our own Andrew Mason wrote a column about how it was a good idea on the other side of things. And the most common thing I got was, well, they kept Vele over Patrick. And it's like, I'm of the mind, just keep the best receivers. Like both Tim Patrick and Devon Vele could have helped the 2024 Broncos win. I did not think people would be this passionate about it. I respect the passion. I love the passion. But objectively, Tim Patrick is a better football player than Lil Jordan Humphrey. Can I also give you 3 names that they kept over Tim Patrick on the 53? Because I was told, they didn't have room for him on the 53 because LGH also got cut and then was a practice squad guy. Okay, my retort to that would be they kept 3 quarterbacks. They didn't need to keep 3
Definitely
quarterbacks.
didn't need to do that. In fact, I think that's more egregious when you're talking about leaving players off or making those bottom third roster decisions than choosing a Devon Vele over a Tim Patrick, who you essentially drafted Devon Vele to replace Tim Patrick. They were similar in archetype, similar as a receiver. And I think we've seen some decent things from Vele.
We've seen some great things. I'm not advocating Tim over Vele, but I am advocating Tim over LGH. Tim over 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Blake Watson made the official 53.
Yep.
How much has Blake Watson helped the Broncos this year? And then one more name, and it's not going to be popular, but he proved he was a bust, and you should have cut ties earlier. Greg Dulcich. Okay, so you kept 3 quarterbacks, Blake Watson and Greg Dulcich over Tim Patrick. I'm sorry, that just settles the debate for me that you didn't keep the best 53.
Yeah, I think you're right, Will, but I also think you're using the benefit of hindsight. And I think when you think back to mid-July and mid-August when these decisions were being made, late August in some of the cases, you didn't know all that at the time. And I think if you're Sean Payton, yes, Greg Dulcich proved to be, he is who we thought he was.
Colossal bust.
And just, again, one of those guys that, like, you saw it in the very brief respites that he was healthy early in his career. It was, wow, this guy could be a game breaker. This guy has playmaker potential. And then he just couldn't stay healthy. And it feels like even in the recent, stint when he was healthy, that spark just faded. And but
a couple drops.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But if you're Sean Payton and you've just drafted Bo Nix, are you going to be, even with a guy that's been shaky and inconsistent, but there's potential there, are you really just going to cut bait with a guy who could help your young quarterback, especially because you don't have a bounty of playmakers around him? Lil Jordan Humphrey, there's a Sean Payton likes his guys. I get that. Do I think Lil Jordan Humphrey is a great NFL receiver? No. Is he a good NFL receiver? Sometimes. I said sometimes. And I find it ironic that his name's Lil Jordan and he's like the biggest receiver on the team.
Yeah.
I love that. But
you tell me I'm using the benefit of hindsight, though.
Yeah, because
Richie, I was screaming from the mountaintops to anyone that would listen, keeping 3 quarterbacks, including keeping Jarrett Stidham, was dumb. Like,
I agree.
We can pull the tape from July and August. I said, do not keep 3 quarterbacks. I really didn't like the way Jarrett Stidham went to the podium and talked about Bo Nix. I said, you should just cut him, just cut bait. They didn't. That's just another route. You could have kept Tim Patrick, and I'm happy for Tim. That's the biggest thing. Like, you're watching last night and you're happy for Tim.
Yeah.
But you're also a little disgruntled as a Broncos fan because I think he could have helped this team this season.
Yeah, I don't think that it's unreasonable to think that he couldn't have helped. But I do think that when you're thinking back to again, training camp and the preseason when we were talking about some of this before they made the roster cuts, Tim Patrick hadn't played football in 2 years.
He also looked pretty good in the preseason. Remember, he rolled with the ones against the Packers in the dress rehearsal.
We were there.
He was very good in that game. Remember, it was a shocker when when Mike Klisch tweeted they were cutting Tim Patrick. Everyone was like, "Wait, what? He's operating with the first team offense." Remember that? We always talk about surprise cuts. That one did come out of left field. It was the definition of a surprise cut.
Yeah, and I think it stings because he was a kind of a fan favorite, kind of scrappy guy.
We share that.
And yeah, exactly. And you and Timmy Patrick, basically the same thing. Put you in a Lions uniform. Couldn't tell the difference. But he hadn't played football in 2 years. He wasn't going to be, he didn't have like impact receiver potential based on the body of work that he'd put together, where it's like, okay, I know he hasn't played, like the Christian McCaffrey example, right? Like Christian McCaffrey has gotten hurt so many times early in his career, but when he's healthy, he's that guy. And so, okay, you're going to put up with it, or you'll take risks, or you'll do what you have to do. I just don't think there was that much of a difference, especially when you invested in the draft and you'd brought in Josh Reynolds and other guys to try to supplement it. I don't fault Sean Payton for doing it the way that he did it, I guess. And knowing that also Tim Patrick in Detroit gets to play like wide receiver 4. He gets to take the defender who's not going to guard Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, Sam Laporta, the 2 backs out of the backfield, Sonic and Knuckles. Okay, Jamison Williams is a solid wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 fringe kind of guy who plays their slot. Tim Patrick gets to take advantage of that offense, where here he would be getting much more focal point from the opposing defense, second only to Cortland Sutton.
All I know is he caught 2 touchdowns last night in an NFC Championship game preview. Like, that's what he did.
Yeah.
Like, you went on that argument, and I get it. I respect what you're saying. Like, he hadn't played in 2 years. That's just a straight up fact. But it's now December, and he's catching 2 touchdowns in a phenomenal Thursday night game against 2 teams that very well may meet again for a trip to the Super Bowl. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I get it. And I will say that I'm happy for Tim too, because sometimes you just, if it's not going to work out here, and this is funny because I don't feel this way about Russell Wilson. If it's not going to work out here or Jerry Jeudy, then go somewhere else where it works and it fits, and great. Like I'm happy to see Tim Patrick, who's had to fight through those injuries and the mental anguish that he's had to go through, probably to sit on the sidelines for 2 years. And
2 golf carts at training camp.
Yeah,
I mean, 2022 and 23.
Almost to the day.
Yeah,
a year later. I mean, it's tough. Like spooky. But I'm happy for Tim. I wish him nothing but the best. I don't think that Tim Patrick being on this team, so if Tim Patrick's on this team, Will, are they 9-4? Are they 10-3? Are they? I mean, like, how tangible is the impact, or how detrimental is Bo Nix's development and the people he has around him without Tim Patrick versus with him?
I just know that LGH has made plays that have hurt this team, right? The fumble against the Panthers really hurt the team. There was another one on a first drive, maybe a penalty, or no, he tipped it, and that got Bo Nix intercepted up in Baltimore. Up in Baltimore. So can I sit here and say, oh, Richie, they'd be 10-3 with Tim Patrick? No, but I can point to legitimate examples where that would have been Tim instead of Lil Jordan. And he had a really bad play against the Ravens that got that game off on the bad foot, and then he had a really bad play against the Panthers. Luckily, Carolina was so terrible at the time. Denver recovered without problems, but we do have tangible examples of where I would rather have had Tim than Lil Jordan. It is what it is. I just thought it was fun banter, and it fired people up, so I think it's interesting.
Listen, it's fortuitous that we're in a position with the Broncos where we can look back at roster moves that were made and weren't made with the hindsight of how good they look right now, and how, maybe they could have been even better, instead of, it didn't really matter because the team sucks anyways, which is what we've kind of felt at week 13, 14, kind of the backstretch of a lot of these seasons. So Tim Patrick, a roster move that they made, maybe they should have, maybe they shouldn't have. A roster move, a team that needs to make a roster move, in my opinion, is the Colorado Avalanche. And I feel like I've been on this Georgie roller coaster, strapped in as much as anybody. And I think my opinion has swayed a lot. And I've been open about, kind of changing, with the tides as
which is your right. That's your right. People think we have to take a side and stick to it.
Yes, no, you have to adapt to new information.
To
and so when he first came here, my thought on Georgie was, wow, did the Avs pluck a promising goaltender from behind one of the elite tenders in the league in Shesterkin, and who just wasn't going to get the shine? It's like being the backup to Aaron Rodgers kind of thing, or Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And I had some hope. I had some promise because they, I'm not going to say luck, because I don't think it was all luck, but I think it was some very fortuitous circumstances and some insane offensive production that led to the Avs winning a Stanley Cup in dynamic, dominant fashion with the worst goaltending in Stanley Cup history by save percentage. And I don't think you're going to strike that lightning in that bottle twice. So when they brought in Georgie, I was like, oh, hey, maybe. And then it wasn't good. And it was like, well, okay, then they did it with, they found a way to make it work with Kemper and Frankie when it wasn't so good. And it's just been worse than that, flat out. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, but what else is out there? So maybe if the Avs are going to win a cup, it's going to have to be on the shoulders of Georgie, and he's just going to have to figure it out. They're going to have to play defense around him. And I now sit here with you today on this Friday. They can't do that. There is no Georgie's not going to figure it out. And I don't think the Avs, as talented as they are, can play good enough offense and good enough defense to be a legitimate playoff cup contender with Georgie in net. Therefore, I never want to see him in net again.
Interesting. Someone wrote that after game 1 in Winnipeg last year and got some heat for it. Listen, you had some good thoughts there for sure. I mean, the Georgie thing at this point, like you can even look at last night, Richie, like they have to go to Wedgwood last night because Georgie was so bad in Buffalo. And everyone's like riding this Wedgwood train because he got the shutout in Buffalo and he was great. Don't get me wrong. He was great.
You don't win a lot of 4-0 deficits in the first period.
But then what happens last night? Scott Wedgwood gives up 4 goals and the Avs lose 5-3 to the Hurricanes.
A career backup goaltender has a
played
career
like a backup,
Yep.
and you're playing a contender in the East, and Carolina got 4 on him. The Avs had a bad too many men on the ice penalty when it was 3-2 late. Carolina made it 4-2. Nichushkin makes it 4-3. They got to pull Wedgwood 5-3, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
But Mike Evans and I have talked about this on the Mile High Hockey podcast of, yes, they need to make a trade. Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland absolutely need to make a trade. The problem is you're not getting an elite goalie for Georgie straight up. You're going to have to sweeten the pie, right? Some of the names I threw out there were Ross Colton, Ivan, and Nikolai Kovalenko. Okay? Like those are up and coming guys. Colton's been in the league a while, but he's having a good year before he broke his foot. Remember, last year they traded Bowen Byram, okay? And everyone's like, I can't believe you traded Bowen Byram. And I think it proves that there's really only 6 or 7 untouchables on this team. But then when this gets really interesting is people want to start talking about Mikko Rantanen.
I'm one of those people.
And that's where, to me, this gray area, because, oh my gosh, Mikko for Igor Shesterkin. That's what Zach By and Philip Lindsay really are both on board with. I can't do it. I can't do it, Richie. He rolls out of bed and gets you 100 points.
I got it.
It just, for a team that doesn't have the offensive production they had 2 years ago, you can't remove your second best offensive player from this team and expect to win a cup, even with a guy like Shesterkin coming in. I'd be much more inclined. I think you can win it with middle of the road goaltending. Trade Ivan and Alexander Georgiev for somewhat of an upgrade in net and just get mediocre goaltending. That's all we're advocating for. No one's advocating for world-class goaltending. Just mediocre goaltending. And Georgiev can't provide that right now.
I'm with you. I hear the argument in terms of you don't need to swing for the fence, just get on base when it comes to goaltending. My fear with that is that they'll do something like that. They'll go out there and trade for a middle of the road guy, maybe like one of our listeners was suggesting Tristan Jarry.
Okay, yeah,
from Pittsburgh, who's kind of had a there it is, on the screen there. So has had kind of an up and down, got sent down to the minors and had to come back up, and so you're looking at a stressful situation there, but maybe has a little bit higher upside than somebody like Georgie and probably a lot more than somebody like Scott Wedgwood, who's kind of a decade into it at this point and is what he is. My fear with that is you're going to end up, you and I'll sit here, next year around this time and be having the exact same conversation we're having right now, that it was a little bit better, but not good enough, which is why I'm saying the Avs have in my opinion, a finite window here to make something happen, to maximize the core of some of the best players in the National Hockey League that they've managed to all keep together, including Mikko. And I am okay with the idea of slicing off a chunk of that core.
It's a big chunk.
I got it. But sometimes you need to flip the game board around. I don't think this is as simple as moving the pieces and trying to just get cute with a certain little way and we'll just make it work. That's kind of how they won the first cup. I don't think you can win that way again. So if you're telling me my options are keep what we have now with McKinnon, Makar, Mikko, Lecky, offensive firepower, and a little bit better than Georgie, or I sacrifice Mikko, but I still have McKinnon, Makar, Lehkonen, Val Nichushkin, maybe, probably not, Gabe Landeskog, all of that, and I can lock down a legitimate top-tier goaltender, and it costs me Mikko to do that. I think my chances are better with that to win a Stanley Cup, which is what we're here to do, than trying to roll the dice with another maybe so, maybe not, middle-of-the-road guy.
Well, the elephant in the room, obviously, is Mikko going to walk, right? This offseason. So that's the other wrinkle to this. Is I still think they're going to get a deal done with Mikko. I think Mikko wants to be a lifelong Av.
How does it work? How does it look to you if you think they're going to get a deal done?
Oh, one side will blink. Because the Avs know they need Mikko, and Mikko knows he needs the Avs.
The Avs will cave and pay Mikko his market value,
or Mikko's camp will blink and take 12.5 or 13 rather than the 14 they're reportedly asking for.
And how much does Nathan McKinnon make?
Somewhere in the mid 12s. So there's that whole awkward that he has to make the most money because he's the best player.
So the Avs are going to blink on that.
Or Mikko's going to blink. I didn't. No, that's just the second time. I said someone will blink.
Okay. Then let me rephrase it. Who do you think is more likely to blink?
Mikko.
Really? You don't think he'll have enough suitors and enough leverage to say,
bro, he's smart enough to know he plays with Nathan McKinnon. Okay. And it's like when the Nuggets guys leave, they were not smart enough to know they played with Nikola Jokic. Mikko Rantanen, if he wants to go sign with the Ducks or the Sharks or the Blue Jackets or whoever, he's a 60-point-a-year guy. Like he's a 65-point-a-year guy. Like, is that extra $1 million really worth A, playing on a bad team, and B, watching your production go down the tank and being unhappy? I don't think it is. I think someone will get in Mikko's ear and make that clear to him. Look what Kadri's numbers did when he went to Calgary. I mean, he was still a fine player, but that's what happens when you no longer play with Nathan McKinnon.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Will, but for the record, the speculation that Nathan McKinnon makes in the mid 12s and that the Avs allegedly don't want to pay Mikko more than McKinnon based on principle and all that. That's not just something that's being made up out of thin air.
No.
There's intel and buzz around that notion from inside the building.
Exactly.
Whether they'll confirm it or not, it's not just something that's being made up.
No. And it's human nature, right? It's human nature. The biggest star anywhere. Why do CEOs make the most money? The biggest stars. Why do, sports teams, whatever industry. The biggest star should make the most money. And it makes the locker room awkward if Nathan McKinnon's not making the most money.
Yeah. And so I just wanted to clarify that because, I think there could be people who
there are like top tier and like Pierre LeBrun, I believe. And maybe it wasn't Pierre, but that's just an example. Like there are top tier NHL insiders who have gone on the record saying that.
Okay. And I thought so too, but I just wanted to clarify because I didn't want people to think we were making it up. And I just think that's a tough gamble to take. If you're Chris McFarland and you say, hey, they're going to blink, or your Mikko's camp can say, hey, they're going to blink. And if not, we're going to get what we want anyways. But if you're the Avs, if you're Chris McFarland, that's a tough gamble to take to say, hey, I think we're going to play a game of chicken here and you're going to blink first. And then if you lose, you get nothing. You get nothing. And then you're really screwed. So then it kind of comes into the Belichickian philosophy of move on a little early versus a little late. and kind of guarantee yourself something or hedge yourself something. In this case, I think it's a pretty big hedge if you can move him for a quality piece. Now, that's also making an assumption. There's no guarantee. I mean, we've heard that, and it's been speculated that Shesterkin, who's coming into a free agent year after this season, has not signed anything new yet, and there may be some hesitancy or some pause there over finances, the same way that there is with Mikko and the Avs. And then outside of that, though, and here's my problem. I think I know what they need to do, and I think it is to bring in a top flight goaltender and make a trade like a Mikko Rantanen trade, but I don't think they can get it done. I don't think so, because I think that more likely than not, Shesterkin will end up back in New York. And even the other New York goaltenders, Sorokin, I think that would be great too, but kind of tough to deal with the Islanders. With Lou Lamoriello, he kind of does things the way that he does things, and that's not exactly like a, hey, let's make a deal kind of guy. And outside of that, I just don't know.
Well, you don't know what top tier goalies are really available, Richie, right? Because if you have a top tier goalie and you're on the path toward the cup, you're not going to blow that up for Mikko Rantanen. So you're right. It's an interesting wrinkle. Listen, I get it, man. It's just going to be a fascinating story to watch how it plays out. And, we spent the last 10 minutes on Georgie because if Georgie was just playing okay, we wouldn't have to. But here we are. They're 14 and 13 through 27 games.
I've also heard it mentioned that the Avs have a goaltender kind of waiting in the wings, coming over from Russia, Ilya Nabokov.
Believe that when I see it.
Exactly, but again, I think that that's a really risky gamble because you don't know, and it's a young prospect, and there's it takes time to adjust in a professional league of any setting. And this is a critical key position to do it. So that's a gamble. Playing chicken with Mikko Rantanen in his camp is a gamble. Rolling out a mid-tier-ish kind of okay goaltender and trying to replicate the 2021 Cup formula is a big gamble. The Avs have nothing but gambles in front of them, and I don't like any of their hands. And that's what's frustrating.
Yeah.
But I sadly, I think they have a little bit more options and flexibility than the Nuggets, who I think are also facing a similar problem. And Nikola Jokic is bar none the greatest player in the world. And that is a heavy crown to bear, specifically with his situation now, because they're nothing without him. Despite their core four, they're nothing without him. And right now, what you're seeing with an underwhelming Jamal Murray and a improved in certain areas, but overall still not probably where you want him to be, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon dealing with injuries, Christian Brown stepping in admirably, but not enough to be a true difference maker alongside the highest paid max players that you've got on the team. I don't know what else the Nuggets can do. The groceries have been bought. The table is set. They got to make dinner with this, and it's not looking like it's going to be a Michelin star.
I mean, there was something poetic on a night last night where Nikola Jokic passes Magic Johnson, an iconic name in NBA history for all-time triple-doubles, to move to third on the list. Ironically, his teammate Russell Westbrook is first. There's something ironic, Richie. That was the second story last night.
Yep.
The first story was everyone got to watch that game because it was on 9 News. It was on Channel 20.
Hallelujah.
Everyone got to watch that game last night, and we all walked away like cartoon characters with steam coming out of our ears. And you could tell Michael Malone felt the same way in his post-game press conference. I mean, the amount of threes they gave up to Cleveland was alarming versus the amount of threes they shot. And it just feels like Jokic is out there playing his tail off and not getting enough help.
Nope.
And it's what? It's December 6th, folks. We've been having these conversations since October. There's an element of Groundhog Day to this. And like you said, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to trade Jamal Murray just after you sign him for $208 million? The contract looks even terrible. It hadn't even kicked in yet. Like, I don't know. I fear, Richie, and it's fascinating to think about that it's 2024 still. And the Denver Broncos are the team in this town providing the most hope of the Big Four. I mean, we won't get into the bus, but the Big Four pro teams, the Broncos have, yes, credit to the Broncos, but also the Avs and Nuggets. The Broncos are now the team with the most hope in this town. Yeah. The Nuggets, I can't even sit here and start, like, at least with the Avs, we can offer up some solutions.
Yeah.
The Nuggets, we don't have a lot of solutions to offer up.
No. And this is the bed that they've made. And I think some of the signings were rooted in logic, and you have to, at a certain point, if you're a front office, you have to be able to try to project and make decisions before you're 100% positive that they're going to work. But with this one, I just don't think you could have anticipated. Maybe some of us could, because I've not been the biggest fan of him of late, but the Jamal Murray drop off, and what's frustrating is,
but could you have predicted like fall off a cliff? Like Richie, he's fallen off a cliff in the last 18 months.
And I do want to make one point, because we've definitely not been shy about criticizing Jamal Murray when he has invited that criticism about him for things outside of basketball, for his flippancy toward the media, for his seeming lack of care, or not
his
being
desire to fight in the MMA.
Exactly.
That he's talking about it. And I think why are you talking about that?
Yeah. Some moments of immaturity. But I'll say this, and I think it was evident in that game last night. While I do think that by and large, last night and in recent kind of examples, the team has looked kind of lethargic and slow. I don't think that Jamal Murray's slump is due to a lack of effort. I do think that he's trying. I mean, he found ways in the last couple of games to try to distribute the ball in other ways. When his shot's not falling, when he's going 4 of 12 from the field for 18 points, he's finding ways to dish the ball to other players. He's trying to hustle around on defense. And I think it's got to be crazy frustrating for him, because it's just not working. And I do think that's
like important. The Monstars stole his talent.
Yes, I do think in this instance, it's important to distinguish, because we've hammered him for some of the other stuff, and justifiably so. I don't think this is apathetic Jamal Murray that's fallen off a cliff. I actually just think it's not working, and he doesn't know why. And that's almost scarier, because if it was apathy, you could just say, hey, snap it back into gear. James was advocating to bench him, to teach him a lesson, and maybe that works. But I don't know that works in this case, because I think he's actually trying. I just think it's not working.
Yeah. Well, that's even more depressing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Like that you just gave this guy max money. You've tied your franchise to him for the next 5-6 years, and he looks like a backup point guard at this point. Like it's stunning, Richie. He and Jokic had triple doubles in Miami 18 months ago in Game 3 of the NBA Finals. He doesn't even look like the same dude.
No,
it's like I'm waiting for someone to pull
staring down Kevin Harlan. And we're built for this. And
I'm waiting for someone to like pull the Scooby-Doo mask off and reveal Andre Miller. Like I don't know, no shot at Andre, but kind of a little shot at Andre. But my point is, like, I can't remember an athlete. Okay, like Peyton Manning, when he was in his 40s, we saw a sharp decline. Whatever, that happens. Guys are in his 40s. Jamal's in his late 20s. We don't see this kind of drop off with pro athletes in their late 20s.
Yeah, and again, it's even more concerning in some regards, because Jamal Murray during that the title run,
the O'Brien run,
the Larry O, he felt like that was the first time he felt like he kind of clicked and was in line with the expectations about him. He was the big shot maker, which we've seen instance even when he's not playing well. But he was fluid. The pick and roll, the 2-man game with Jokic was the best we'd ever seen it. But that was an aberration that in terms of Jamal Murray. He's a 0-time all-star. And it's always kind of been like we're left wanting more, because we've seen what it's on. And when Jamal Murray's on offensively, it's special. It's fun to watch, and it is unique in the NBA. It's always been the consistency, though, with Jamal. And so I was a little bit bummed after last night, getting up this morning, coming to work, because I feel like we watched the Avs and the Nugs take on two teams from the opposing conference who just flat out look better.
Yeah.
And I'm not used to seeing the Avs and the Nugs play teams where they walk away from a contest and it's just like, no, that other team was just flat out better. It was usually, they had a bad night. There was this fluky this, there was this fluky that. They're just getting beat now.
Yeah, no, it was frustrating because, we would love to come in here and say, we had a potential cup preview, Avs and Hurricanes. Mm-hmm. We had a potential NBA Finals previews, Nuggets and Cavs. You could see the Hurricanes there. You could see the Cavs there. I'm not sure at the moment if you're going to see the Avs or Nuggets there.
And that exact reason is why the title of this show was Complacency is the Enemy of Progress. And that's why I think the sense of urgency to do something, if you're the front offices of both of the teams that park at Ball Arena, is got to be high. You can't just do nothing, or you can't just make minor changes and hope that things kind of flip your way and you start to snowball it. You've got to do something to turn this around, because the title windows for two of the best players in their individual sports,
or the best,
that we are so fortunate to have in this town, those windows are closing. And I don't want to 15, 20 years from now be sitting around the living room with my kids talking about how we had the greatest players in their sports and we managed to get one ring out of it that by that time people have forgotten about. You're the 2019 Toronto Raptors.
Right.
And that's what scares me. And so I hope and pray that that's not the case. But I think the way that they approach the rest of these seasons and these upcoming off seasons are going to tell us a lot.
Totally. What a fun Friday, Richie.
I know. Happy Friday, though.
Happy Friday. No, it's well said on your end, man. They gotta figure it out. They gotta figure it out fast. And in the meantime, the Denver Broncos are a great distraction.
Well, we'll have eyes on all of it, and as it happens, we will be here to react to it with you. Please give us a follow on YouTube, all of our social channels at DenverSports.com. So much written content on the website, DenverSports.com, video content all over the place. Great stuff from Will, Jake, James, Mace, Cecil. All of our Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan crew is available to you at the touch of your fingertips. And I will get into it with you here. And one of the aforementioned, James Merrilat, will be with me on Monday. We'll see you then.